Thousands of years ago, people believed that invisible gods shaped human behavior. Gods of war, gods of love, gods of fortune. Today, most of us no longer think about the world in those terms. But something interesting happened. The forces those old stories tried to describe never truly disappeared. They simply moved somewhere else, into our habits, into our fears, into our desires, into the way we think about money. Think about the last time you spent money. Maybe you bought something you did not really need. Maybe you hesitated even though you could afford it. Maybe part of you wanted to save, while another part wanted to spend. That feeling is not random, because inside every financial decision, several psychological forces are quietly competing for control. To make these forces easier to understand, imagine them the way ancient storytellers once did, as a pantheon, a hidden council. Not gods living in the sky, but voices living inside the human mind. The voice of prestige, the voice of applause, the voice of temptation, the guardian of security, the voice of fearful saving, the shadow of avoidance, the voice of adventure, the voice of freedom, the patron of identity, and the silent architect of wealth. 10 motives. 10 ways money quietly shapes our lives. And every time you open your wallet,
Approved
they
by
vote.
the council.
The first force in this council is one of the oldest, the voice of prestige. This voice does not care much about usefulness. It does not ask whether something is practical. It asks something else. How will this make you look? Imagine a young professional walking past a bright store window. Inside sits the newest phone model. The one they already own still works perfectly. But that is not the point. The voice of prestige leans closer and whispers. What will people think when they see the new one? Prestige spending is rarely about the object itself. It is about the signal, the watch, the shoes, the logo, the upgraded device, a message without words. For a very long time, human beings have cared about status, who seems respected, who seems successful, who seems ahead. The voice of prestige still speaks that ancient language. It simply uses modern objects. And sometimes, without fully realizing it, we buy things not because we need them, but because we want the story they tell about us. But prestige is rarely satisfied with being seen by a few people. Very quickly, another voice appears, the voice of applause. If prestige cares about status, applause cares about attention. It asks a simple question. Did anyone notice? Imagine someone sitting at a cafe table. The coffee arrives. The lighting is perfect. The cup looks beautiful. The moment feels carefully arranged. Before the first sip, the phone appears. The angle is adjusted, and the background is cleared, and the photo is taken. Now the drink is no longer just a drink. It becomes a moment to share, a signal sent outward. The voice of applause does not always care how expensive something is, it cares how visible it is. In a world of likes, views, and comments, attention begins to feel like a kind of currency. And sometimes we do not spend just to enjoy life. We spend to display it. Prestige creates the signal. Applause spreads it to the crowd. But the next force in the council cares about neither status nor attention. It cares about something much more immediate. The voice of temptation. This voice speaks the language of now. Not next month, not next year, now. Imagine a quiet room late at night. Your phone lights up. Flash sale. Only a few hours left. Limited stock. A product appears that you were not even thinking about 5 minutes ago, and suddenly it feels important.
Forget
The
your
voice
plans,
of temptation
my love.
does not ask whether this purchase fits your long-term plans. It asks a simpler question. Why not now? A bright button, a countdown timer, a small rush of excitement. For a moment, the purchase feels thrilling. That is its power. It lives in impulse, in quick rewards, in the small burst of pleasure that makes tomorrow feel far away. And yet, as soon as temptation speaks, another voice rises in response. A quieter voice, a slower voice, a voice that asks. What about tomorrow? This is the guardian of
Hail,
security,
great Bacchus.
where temptation lives
Drink
in
until
glowing
the
markets
morning
and flashing
comes.
screens. The guardian lives in quiet rooms, budgets, plans, preparation. Imagine someone sitting at a desk late in the evening. Instead of scrolling through shopping apps, they open a simple spreadsheet. They review expenses. They move money into savings. They prepare for uncertainty. The guardian of security is not exciting, but that is exactly the point. This force cares about stability, emergency funds, consistent saving, protection against uncertainty. The guardian understands something temptation prefers to forget. Life is unpredictable. A medical bill, a job loss, a broken car, a difficult month. And in those moments, quiet preparation can matter more than visible success. But even security has a shadow. Because when the desire for safety grows too strong, it can become fear, and that shadow has a name. The voice of
Behold,
fearful
the
saving.
future of organization.
Unlike the guardian,
1,000
this voice
pages
does
in this
not save
compact
from
tablet,
calm
and
preparation.
spectacles to sharpen any
It saves
gaze.
from
the Emperor
worry.
himself uses them.
Imagine someone walking past a store. They see something useful, something they can afford, something that would genuinely help them, but they stop. Then they walk away, not because they do not want the item, but because another voice whispers, "What if you need the money later?" Then the questions multiply. What if something goes wrong? What if income disappears? What if tomorrow costs more than today? A small amount of caution can protect us, but too much caution can make life feel narrow. Every purchase becomes heavy. Every expense feels risky. Money stops feeling like a tool and starts feeling like a fragile shield. Even saving can become stressful. Even caution can become a burden. And when money feels stressful for too long, another force often appears, not to protect, not to tempt, but to avoid the entire conversation. This is the shadow of avoidance. This voice does not want to think about money at all. No budget, no account check, no uncomfortable decision. Imagine a bank notification appearing on a phone screen. The person sees it and then ignores it, not because the situation disappears, but because looking feels harder in the moment, and avoidance can feel strangely comforting. If I do not open the app, the problem feels distant. If I do not look at the numbers, maybe they cannot hurt me yet. But avoidance always charges interest. Ignored decisions grow heavier. Unpaid attention grows expensive. The future keeps moving even when we refuse to look. And yet, the council is not built only on fear. Some voices remind us that money is not just about protection. Sometimes it is about exploration, possibility, movement. This is the voice of adventure, where fearful saving asks what could go wrong. Adventure asks what life could open up: a ticket, a train ride, a concert, a road trip, a new place, a new memory. This voice sees money not only as protection, but as a doorway. Experiences have a strange quality. Unlike objects, they rarely sit quietly on a shelf. They turn into stories. Stories we remember, stories we tell, stories that shape how we see the world. The voice of adventure reminds us that money can do more than accumulate. It can widen horizons. It can create moments that stay with us long after the receipt disappears. But adventure is not the same as freedom. Adventure seeks meaningful experience. Freedom seeks breathing room. And that brings us to another voice. The voice of freedom. This personality does not care much about impressing anyone. It often does not want more things. It wants more space, more control over time, more independence. Imagine someone working quietly from a laptop in a simple room, or choosing a smaller life. Not because they failed to desire more, but because they decided they valued freedom more than display. The voice of freedom sees money differently. To this voice, money is not the destination. It is the tool, the bridge between survival and autonomy, the ability to say no, the ability to leave a bad situation, the ability to choose how to spend a day, a year, or a life. Some people chase wealth to look successful. Others chase it to feel safe. But the freedom seeker often chases it to feel less trapped. And then, at an even deeper level, another force emerges. One that asks not what others think, and not even what life can offer, but who you are becoming. This is the patron of identity. This voice appears in quiet, personal decisions. A musician buying new strings, a photographer upgrading a lens, a runner tying shoes before sunrise, a writer opening a fresh notebook. These purchases are not always about status, and they are not always about impulse. Sometimes they are about alignment. A way of saying to yourself, "This matters to me. This is part of who I am," and the patron of identity understands something powerful. Money is not only a resource, it is also a signal we send inward, a reinforcement of identity, a declaration, however quiet, of what kind of a person we believe we are becoming. Sometimes spending is not consumption. Sometimes it is construction. And finally, at the far end of the council, there is a voice so quiet that many people overlook it entirely. The silent architect of wealth. Unlike prestige, this voice does not need to be seen. Unlike applause, it does not need an audience. Unlike temptation, it does not need immediate reward. It works slowly, patiently, almost invisibly. Imagine someone who looks completely ordinary. A simple car, a modest routine, no loud display of success. But year after year, they save a little, invest a little, repeat thoughtful decisions, again and again. The silent architect understands something many people underestimate. Large outcomes are often built from small repetitions. A little saved, a little invested, a little restraint, a little patience. Over time, these small acts become structure, and structure becomes stability. This is why people who quietly build wealth often do not look the way the world expects, because real wealth is often not theatrical. It is quiet. It grows in the background. And sometimes the quietest voice in the room is the one shaping the future most powerfully. Now, step back. Look again at the whole council. Prestige, applause, temptation, security, fearful saving, avoidance, adventure, freedom, identity, and the silent architect of wealth. At first, these may sound like 10 different kinds of people, but here is the final twist. They are not 10 different people. They are 10 different voices, inside the same mind. Every time you make a financial decision, these voices begin a quiet debate. One says, "Buy it." Another says, "Wait." Another asks, "What will people think?" Another asks, "What kind of life are you building?" And somewhere in the background, another voice asks the question that may matter most. Which choice will still make sense tomorrow? That is why money decisions are rarely just about numbers. They are about psychology, values, fear, identity, attention, security, hope. The goal is not to silence every voice. Each one exists for a reason. The goal is to recognize them, to notice when they appear, to understand what they want, and to decide which voice deserves to lead. Because every time you open your wallet, the Council of Money quietly gathers, and the life you build depends on which voice you choose to follow.